Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and I want to do something very different today as I've been keeping an eye on this title. This is Renaissance Kingdom Wars. It just recently came out, but has been on my radar for quite some time because it looks like 2000s Total War, Medieval 2 and so on. However, it's based on the Renaissance period and it's got real-time turns, which is obviously quite interesting considering that yeah, I don't think we've had games like this. Sure, there was Knights of Honor, but the problem there was it just didn't really get supported, and the sequel just looked like a copy-paste of the first game from like 20 years prior. This one looks like a game from 20 years prior, however, it does seem quite interesting, because it is a very small team, coming with a narrative campaign, a sandbox campaign, and then some skirmishes so you can play around with it. There's a lot to go around for this, so let's have a little bit of a discussion about it. It's important to note that this game has just come out on early access, but there's a lot going for it. There's a number of different kingdoms that you can play around with, and each of the kingdoms has sub-factions that you can also play. The idea here is that you are a servant, but you can actually betray them. I have gone and started my own island campaign and just taken out the rest of Ireland for myself because, yes. This does mean that there is a lot of options. It has been stated that more and more stuff will be added in as the game progresses, so let's hope that this actually does happen, because I'm fairly impressed. There's quite a lot to go around for it. You might also notice that in the starts with section for each of the characters that you pick, there's different types of settlements. So you get cities, which are the really large ones, and then you also get hamlets, which are smaller, kind of like minor towns in a very similar sense to Total War, but also very, very different. When you start a brand new campaign, you do get a nice flyover as expected, which gives you a little bit of information regarding your chosen faction. Some of them are voice, some of them are not. I guess obviously this is because it's an early access game, but it does give you some nice little historical context for your chosen faction, what's going on with your kingdom and what enemies you may have. Plus the flyover, which you can skip by the way, does allow you to kind of go, okay, I've got this, this, and this. Maybe I should start pushing my way this way. Again, the usual planning stages right before a campaign properly begins. So this is the campaign map, and as you can see, it's actually fairly large. There are loads and loads of different towns and settlements all over the place. Even England is huge in terms of just different areas that you can conquer. You've got pretty much all of Europe, you've got a little bit of Scandinavia, and also a lot of Northern Africa. So you can play around, you can start pretty much anywhere as long as you pick the faction associated with that, which my only complaint so far with this game is that when you're picking a faction, you don't have like a map that you can see, or if there is, I just haven't seen that, because it would be nice to just see locations on where I'm getting a troop, where they are. Obviously, they give you the settlement names and so on, but a visual representation is always better, as it does allow for better planning, plus it just looks better. I mean, you can already see so much with it, especially when you start turning on the faction colors. There are a lot of factions in the game. You've got Denmark, you've got the Holy Roman Empire, you've got, well, Portugal, Castile. There's a lot to play around with, which is really, really cool. I love the idea of such a grand scale campaign. I think it's one thing that a lot of Total War fans do want from their games. It's very obvious, like when you look towards Immortal Empires and so on. A really big map makes the game much more visually impressive, and it gives you more of a scope and scale on how big the world truly is. So to see that with a historical game is quite cool. So there's a few things that are obviously very similar to Total War. There's also other stuff which is quite different. The fact that you can actually have chickens with you and so on because you can generate food whilst you're sieging an enemy city is really, really cool. Everything is real time too. So as you are moving around, other stuff is moving around. That means that, yeah, you don't have to wait and end a turn. You can just keep your troops moving. Obviously, as time progresses, you'll be generating resources and all that type of stuff. So technically there's turns, but it feels much more fluid. Very much similar to that of Crusader Kings in a sense, which I really do like. This is something that I'd love to see. There's a lot to it. Diplomacy is also a factor. More similar to that of Medieval 2. There wasn't a lot added here. It would be nice to see this eventually come into the future and see more of it. But yeah, the basic stuff. Declaring war, peace, all the usual stuff. And there is technology to be able to boost up your faction, but rather than a tech tree, it's more like branches. One dedicated to tactics, the other one to town, economy, church, advanced military, common military, siegecraft. It's just, yeah, pretty basic, but more or less decent enough to kind of get used to, I think. You would have also noticed that you've got different types of resources too. So it's not just cash, you've got to deal with food, wood, stone, you've got population, you've got stockpile. I like that. It's obviously something that we started seeing now with Total War Troy and Total War Pharaoh, and it's something that we want to see in more Total War games. So it's nice to see other titles doing the same thing, other companies, because when it's just cash, it takes the immersion away. And maybe that's just me. Construction itself is focused on plots, very similar once again to Medieval 2, which is making me really nostalgic for Med 2, I'll be honest with you. I know some people might complain about the graphics, but I kind of like the old school graphics. It makes me think of a better time. It's just that simple. But there's more to it. It's not just this. You see, obviously when you're doing construction, you are picking your buildings, all that different type of stuff. But what if you could actually put them into the city yourself, because you can actually get a city view just in case you get attacked, because siege battles are a thing. But yeah, you can build up whatever you want. You can, as long as you obviously have the buildings and the resources, but you can build them up in different locations. There's a lot of different style towns from what I've been able to see. I imagine that there's going to be more and more maps as this game progresses, if it does progress, because obviously with an early access game, there's always a bit of a risk, but it's only like 20 euros at the moment. You can zoom a decent amount in, but not that much. It's not going to get as close as Total War games normally get, but it's enough to be able to move your armies around, have a nice look at the areas. The map looks gorgeous, and that's, like, I think one of the most important things. It feels like you're actually getting a proper city view. There is a pretty decent tutorial, by the way. It pretty much plays like Rome Remastered in a sense, because it's very much based on like early Total War games, but it's got the controls of Rome Remastered. So yeah, WASD keys and so on, rather than using your mouse to kind of go to different sides of the map and rotate the camera and so on, which is probably the only issue that Med 2 has. If it was updated for modern controls, I think a lot of people would be like a lot happier. Alright, now we have to talk about combat. Now, things are very similar to older style Total War games, but also a little bit different, because you do have your siege weapons already with you in your army. You'll also carry around carts and chickens to generate food. Early on it won't be noticeable that much, but yeah, here I'm just showcasing a small battle which you can either choose to fight or auto-resolve. There is auto-resolve options here if you just like the campaign aspect of stuff, which I know some people do, so it's not like you're forced to fight them, obviously depending on what you have and so on. You get a nice little flyover in, and your army starts off. There is real time. You can stop it though. You can pause it just to get a good look, because you can build up in your camp, because if you have decided to bring some peasants with you, you can turn them into troops and so on. I think that's actually really, really cool. I haven't seen how many maps there are, but I know that obviously you do get field battles, you do get siege battles, really large siege battles. You did see a siege map before. This one is just a minor settlement. It hasn't been built up much because it's the start of a fresh new campaign. So obviously there's not going to be a lot going for there. So yeah, the battle graphics more or less are kind of like early Age of Empires 2. Which, again, not a bad thing. It's a golden game for a good reason. So the enemy has their own camp, which is their settlement. It's kind of built up. Keep in mind that this is a clip from very early into the campaign. So yeah, they're not really going to have a lot, but I'm moving up my forces. I can also make sure that they're facing in certain directions whilst I've got them all in big groups. Obviously not moving up my carts because I don't want them to be destroyed or anything, but I'm going to move up my peasants, move up the rest of my forces. I did start off with a pretty good army, to be honest, so that works out quite well, and it's more like very, very early, kind of maybe Shogun 1 style combat, Medieval 1 type of thing, but hey, it works out quite well. It's pretty fluid. It has a lot of systems. From what I've been able to see from this game, is it looks pretty ambitious to me, because it's got a lot of systems. The real-time turns are a big factor for me. It's something that I wish we had more in actual Total War, because I feel for historical games it fits really well, but I don't know if that would ever happen. Again, maybe it's something that people don't want, but I feel like it would make it feel more alive rather than just stop and go simulator. Combat is still very much like you expect it. You know, cavalry trumps archers, spearmen trumps cavalry, foot soldiers with shields are a good line defense, all the usual stuff, and you do get some cannons and so on in the future. It does depend on the faction that you do pick, I believe, but there is fairly decently sized rosters for everyone. It's definitely something that you're going to want to check out if you're a historical Total War fan and have been missing out some historical stuff, because let's be honest, it's going to be a while until we get something. Pharaoh's coming, but we're not going to be getting another historical game for a while, I think. Like, the rumors have been saying 2026, 2027. So maybe you're looking at this like I did when I saw this game, and it could scratch that itch. It's definitely something I'm going to be checking around a lot more often. And yeah, here's hoping it gets a decent amount of attention. I'm wishing the devs well. It's definitely ambitious. I'm going to let the rest of the battle play out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.
Right away!
Pikes on alert. Stick to them.
We are attacked. The trumpet sounds to horse away. My soul's in arms and eager for the fray.
Pikes to the fray.
Will we get fed this time? Orderly little shots.
They cannot keep up this attack. Good things shall come to those who wait.
Let me wash my hands first. We'll wait our order.
Noble knights, ready thy steeds.
Thy troops are attacked, your grace. O war, thou son of hell.
Pikes are ready, my lord.
There was no way but fight or die, my lord, and resolute